and back with some more lemonade work. We're going to look at chapter 11 and 12 today. First, let's look at chapter 10 just for a quick review. Chapter 10 was called Malicious Mischief. And this is when Jessie was very concerned about how much money Evan had. And really the only way she could know is if she snuck into his room and looked in his box to figure out how much money he had and to see where he was in comparison to her. Because remember, she had a lot of money and she had the money from Megan. So she needed to know if she needed to use the money from Megan or if she could just keep the money from her and then donate Megan's money. And the Trusky's family, they had a rule in the house where you couldn't go into anybody else's room if they did not invite you and then agree for you to come in. So you had to ask permission to come in if you were not invited. And obviously Jessie was not ever invited into Evan's room, so she did sneak in there and figured out that it was very close how much money they each had. And she really wanted to go to the beach with Megan on Sunday instead of selling lemonade. So she ended up sabotaging the lemonade that Evan did have, that he purchased for the last day. She thought, well, if it has fruit flies in it and dirt in it and it looks bad, people aren't going to want to buy it. So she sabotaged. She poured all that stuff in there while Evan was out of the garage. And about the time he was coming up, she called out and said, "Oh, hey, Mom needs you." So he went back downstairs and she finished it up. And she watched him take his wagon full of lemonade away. And she left to go to the beach with Megan for the day. And just thought, okay, cool. We'll let this play out just like it is. So we'll see if that was good on her part. All right, chapter 11 is called A Total Loss. The definition of a total loss: goods so damaged that there's no point in repairing them, or they can't be repaired at all. Chapter 11. The first cup was an easy sell. The second cup, too. It was the third cup that a little girl about 6 years old said, "Ew, there's a bug in my drink." Then her brother said, "Ugh, there's one in mine, too." "Gross," said the older boy on a skateboard. "There are like 3 in mine. I want my money back, man," he said, dumping his lemonade on the ground. The mother of the little girl and the boy looked into their cups carefully. "I think you need to check your lemonade, honey," she said to Evan. Evan unscrewed the cap and everyone looked in. The surface was swimming with dead bugs. Fruit flies, worms, and a soggy brown caterpillar. "Oh my goodness," said the mother. The boy started spitting on the ground like he was going to die. The girl started wailing, "Mommy, I drank bugs. I have bugs in my tummy." Evan couldn't believe his eyes. How did this happen? Did they crawl in somewhere? They couldn't have. He had screwed the lid on tightly. He was sure of it. And anyway, 1 or 2 bugs crawling in? Maybe. But 50 dead fruit flies and 2 inchworms and a caterpillar? It just wasn't possible. Evan was burning with embarrassment as everyone looked at him and his buggy lemonade. Frantically, he reached into the cooler and started to scoop out the dead bugs in his hands. "Sweetheart," said the mother, "you can't sell that lemonade." "I'll get them all," said Evan. "I'll get every last one out." "No, dear, you really can't. You need to dump it out," she said. Evan looked at her eyes like she was crazy. Dump it out? Dump it out? He had spent $40 of his hard-earned money on that lemonade and another $1 for the cups. He wasn't going to just dump it out. "I'll do it at home," he said. No, you should do it here, I think. I need to be sure it's all disposed of properly." Evan looked at her. He didn't know her, but he knew her type. Boy, did he know her type. She was the kind of mother who thought she was the mother of the whole world. If you were on the playground and she thought you were playing too rough, she'd tell you. If you were chewing gum in line at the 7-Eleven, she'd say, "I sure hope that's sugarless." Mothers like that never minded their own business or just their kids' business. They thought they had to take care of every kid in the kingdom. "It's too heavy for me to dump," he said. "I'll take it home and my mom can help." "I'll help," said the busybody mother of the world. "All we need to do is tip it just a little." She grabbed one handle of the big cooler. Evan had no choice but to grab the other handle, and together they tipped the lemonade and poured out the top of the cooler. They poured and poured and poured. The lemonade sparkled in the sunlight like a bejeweled waterfall and then disappeared without a trace, soaking into the parched September grass. As the last loose of lemonade slipped out of the cooler, a slick of mud poured out. "Oh my goodness," said the mother. Evan couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe how quickly his victory had turned to defeat. It was just like the lemonade. It had disappeared into the grass, leaving nothing behind. It was a total loss. The mother smiled sympathetically as Evan returned her $2. The skateboard dude had already skated off with his refund. There was nothing to do but go home. Evan walked slowly, dragging the wagon with the empty cooler rattling beside. With every step he took, the wagon handle poked him in the rear end. Step, poke, step, poke, step, poke. He felt like someone was nudging him forward. "Evan, Mom wants to see you in her office right away." That had been weird. His mom had no idea what he meant. "I didn't call you. I didn't call anyone," she said. "I've been on the computer." "Evan, Mom wants to see you." He had been coming up the stairs. Jessie had been in the garage. She had looked anxious. "Right away," she had said. Evan stopped walking. He stared at the empty cooler, then he started to run. The wagon bounced crazily along the uneven sidewalk. Twice it tipped over. What did it matter, he thought angrily. There's no lemonade to spill. By the time he got home, he had figured it all out. He looked in the kitchen trash and found the 3 Ziploc bags inside and out, sticky with lemonade. He shook the fruit bowl and noticed how few fruit flies took to the air. If he'd had the right materials, he would have dusted the cooler for fingerprints. But there was really no need for that. He knew that he would find. Jessie was all over that one. "That rat! That lousy, stinking rat of a sister!" he shouted. He went back to the garage and kicked the wagon. He knocked the cooler over to the floor. He tore his lemonade on wheels sign into dozens of pieces. He was going to lose. She had $100. He was sure of it. And he had just 62 left. Tonight before the fireworks, when they counted their money, she would be the winner and he would be the loser. Winner takes all, loser gets nothing. It was so unfair. Evan stomped up to his room, slammed the door so hard it bounced open again. When he went to close it, he was staring across the hallway, straight into Jessie's room. He could see her neatly made bed covered in cush pillows, the poster of Bar Harbor from their trip to Maine that summer, and her night table with Charlotte's Web all ready. Evan crossed the hall and then paused at Jessie's door. There was that rule, about not entering others' rooms. Well, she'd broken the rules first. Even though there wasn't really a rule about fruit flies and lemonade, it was clearly a dirty trick. Evan walked in and went straight to Jessie's desk drawer. There was a fake pack of gum inside the key. Did she really think he didn't know where she hid the key? He'd seen her slip the key inside the box when he was passing by on his way to his room. Jessie was smart, but she wasn't very smooth. He'd known for months where the key was hidden. He just hadn't bothered to use it. Until now. It took him a while to find the lockbox. He checked the bureau, dresser, drawers first, and then under the bed, but he finally found it hidden in her closet. Again, not very smooth. Evan carried the key and the lockbox back to his room and sat on the bed. He put the key in the lock and opened the top. Then the moment of truth. He lifted out the plastic gray tray. There was a whole bunch of scraps of paper on top, and there was a folded index card too. Evan moved these aside and found the $10 bill paperclipped to a birthday card. Under that was an envelope labeled pre-war earnings with $4.42 inside. That was the money Jessie had made before the lemonade war began. She'd kept it separate, just like she had promised. Next to it was a fat envelope labeled lemonade earnings. Evan opened that envelope. Inside, the bills were arranged by 1s, 5s, and 10s. All the bills were facing the same way so that the eyes of George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Alexander Hamilton were all looking at Evan as he counted out the cash. $208. There it was, the winning wad. Even though of how hard he had worked with the week, the blazing sun, and the scorching heat, he thought about the colorful of lemonade pouring into the grass. He thought about handing over his $62.11 to Jessie, and how she would smile and laugh and tell everyone that she had won the war. The guys would all shake their heads. What a loser. Megan would turn away. What a stupid jerk. Evan slammed the lid of the lockbox shut. He stuffed the envelope into his short pockets. He was not going to let that happen. He wasn't planning to keep the money. Not for good, but he wasn't going to let her have it tonight. When it came time to show their earnings, he'd share the $62.11 and she'd have nothing. He'd give her the money back tomorrow or maybe the day after, but not tonight. He suddenly felt a desperate need to get out of the house as fast as he could. He shoved the lockbox back into her closet and the key back into the fake pack of gum. "Hey, Mom," he shouted, not even waiting for her to answer. "I'm going to the school to see if there's a game, okay?" He was pretty mad. Chapter 12. This one is called The Waiting Period. Waiting period. A specified delay required by law between taking an action and seeing the results of that action. Chapter 12. Waiting period. Jessie wanted to have fun. She really did, but it seemed like the more she tried, the less fun she had. First, the drive to the beach took 2.5 hours because of traffic. Jessie felt the car lurching forward. Stop, forward, stop, forward. "Memo to self," said Mr. Moriarty. "Never go to the beach on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend, especially when there's been a heat wave for more than a week." In the back seat, Jessie and Megan played license plate tag and magnetic bingo and 20 questions. But by the end of their car ride, Jessie was cramped and bored. Then the beach parking lot was full, so they had to park 1.5 miles away and walk. Then the beach was so crowded they could hardly find a spot for their blanket. Then Megan said the water was too cold and she just wanted to go up to her ankles. She kept squealing and running backwards every time a gentle ripple of wave came up to her. What fun was that? Sure, the water was cold. It was the North Shore. It was supposed to be cold. That's why it felt so good on a hot day like this. When Jessie and Evan went to the beach, they would boogie board and body surf and skimboard and throw a screaming scrunch ball back and forth the whole time. They loved to stay in the water until their lips turned blue and they couldn't stop shaking. Then they'd roast themselves like weenies on their towels until they were hot again and sweating, and then they'd go right back in the water. Now that was a fun day at the beach. Megan liked to build sandcastles and collect shells and play sand tennis